Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Museum of Sonoma County's opening reception for members. This is a member-only event. Plus, we have a few artists, which is really wonderful. With me is Eric Stanley, our associate director and curator of history. I'm Jeff Nathanson, executive director of the museum and art curator. We are really excited because we have a new exhibition, and even though this is an extraordinary time, 2020 certainly an extraordinary year, and we wish we could gather together in person. We are really pleased we have the technology that we can share a new exhibition project, a couple of exhibitions with you tonight, and we thank all of you for your membership, your support, and sticking with us through these crazy times. We hope everybody is well and safe, and we're just glad you're here with us tonight. I want to give a special thank you to our staff, to Eric Stanley, to John Del Buono, who is our exhibition and program manager, to Jenny Bath, who is our education and volunteer coordinator, to Katie Azanza, who is our marketing and visitor experience manager. And visitor experience is a different kind of thing these days because it's mostly virtual, but we look good. We hope we look good. If we do look good, it's because of Katie and her efforts. Maggie is our development manager and is your main contact for all things membership. And so we really want to thank her for keeping in touch and keeping all of you informed. And Megan Kane, our collections registrar. I've got all kinds of information, as does Eric, about what we are going to share with you tonight because of her efforts. Anyway, the exhibition 35 is celebrating 35 years since the museum opened in 1985 in the historic Santa Rosa Post Office. And we planned on a fun and exciting year of celebratory events and programs, but clearly 2020 turned out to be a very different kind of year. So we decided to organize an exhibit curated from our permanent collection in order to address the challenge of planning exhibitions without knowing when we can reopen to the public. And of course, it's a challenge to do studio visits or hold in-person gatherings like an opening reception or put together an artist panel in person. So we set our eye on another challenge, which is how to best share our outstanding collection with the public. And although this exhibition only has 35 out of hundreds of artists who are represented in our collection, we hope it will provide you with a good idea of the breadth and depth of the collection. Just want to mention that we are a Smithsonian affiliate museum with a collection of over 18,000 objects and artworks. And so it took a little bit of research to get into what we have and what we wanted to share with you. One thing I'll also mention here before we get started with information about the 35 exhibition is that our collecting is ongoing, and in fact, some of the works that you'll see tonight were acquired just this year. A focus of our collecting now is to make sure that our collection of contemporary art is as inclusive and representative of Northern California art making as it possibly can be. We have a ways to go to have a truly diverse and representative collection, but we are on the right path, and we hope that you'll enjoy the work of the 35 artists included. After we present the 35 artists from our permanent collection, we will also enjoy some information and images with artistry in wood. And this is, I think, Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, 32, 31 or 32? 32, right? Yeah, okay. And that it's just beautiful woodworking, and so we're going to share that with you tonight. As we get started, I also want to thank the artists, the collectors, the donors who have generously contributed to help us build our collection. We could not have done it without you. Anyway, let's start looking at some images, and I'm going to first, let's take a look at the artist list in the 35 exhibition. Then I'm going to turn it over to Eric Stanley to talk about a couple of the works. So this is the title wall, and when you walk into the gallery, it's the first thing you're going to see. This is all in our art gallery space, which is the contemporary building on the corner of 7th Street and B Street in downtown Santa Rosa. Here is the list of 35 artists who are included in the show. And we're only going to talk about a handful of them tonight, but you can see that it is a varied and really interesting group of artists. Some famous names, some local names, some artists who you may not be familiar with, but we do hope through this project that you will get to know who they are. And let's move to the next image. And here is view number 1. You can see it is a pretty exciting looking exhibition, and we can't wait until you can come back into the museum space physically to see it, hopefully sometime early in 2021. And let's look at another view. And essentially what we've done is organized one gallery space for primarily abstract works, as you see here, with the exception perhaps of the Hassel Smith on the left, which is figurative. But the previous image you will have seen is mostly figurative, representational, and topical works. And let's move to the next slide. And Eric, I'd love to turn this over to you so we can talk about the first work acquired by our museum.
Very good. Thank you, Jeff, and welcome and good evening to everyone. To get things started, I guess it is perhaps best to begin at the beginning. Not only is this the earliest artwork in terms of the year in which it was created that's in the exhibition, it is one of the first objects that the museum acquired for its collection. So this is a painting by a local landscape artist, Santa Rosa-based Elizabeth Hohen from 1908. And in terms of the beginnings of the museum's collection, this painting comes quite close to the point of origin. This painting came to the museum from the Sonoma County Historical Society in 1984, actually the year before the museum actually opened its doors to the public 35 years ago. Over 2,000 objects came from the Sonoma County Historical Society, which had been collecting items since the 1960s. In fact, this painting was a gift to the Sonoma County Historical Society in 1963. So it's really, representing the foundation of the museum's overall permanent collection. And among all those objects given by the Historical Society was this painting. A lovely work of art, and as befitting a gift of the Sonoma County Historical Society, one that is bound up in the early history of our local place and of Santa Rosa. The artist Elizabeth Hohen was the daughter of Berthold Barney Hohen, a German immigrant and gold rush arrival to California. It was Barney Hohen who, through a variety of machinations and maneuverings, too convoluted to really describe here in this setting, that orchestrated the founding of Santa Rosa. He hired the first surveyor, put up the bond related to the establishment of the courthouse that once sat in Courthouse Square, established the first business, and shaped the political process around the establishment of Santa Rosa as the county's seat of government. And it was his daughter who took instruction from the artist Lorenzo Palmer Latimer who grew up in Sonoma County himself and offered art instruction in the northern reaches of the Bay Area. Elizabeth became a skilled painter in her own right, and she kept a studio in Los Angeles and exhibited at the San Francisco Art Association in 1917. And she died in Santa Rosa in 1955. And it was with works like these, as well as numerous California landscapes, that formed the early collection of art at the Museum of Sonoma County. And on to the next, let's go on to the next slide. And these two images acquired a little over a decade after that, that painting, that was an early acquisition, was a collection of photographs from the noteworthy photographers Otto Hegel and Hansel Meath. And on the left, you have a photograph by Otto Hegel from 1942, showing Charmian London, the widow of Jack London, in the ruins of the Wolf House in Glen Ellen. Hansel Meath and Otto Hegel created thousands of powerful photographs during the massive transformations of the 20th century. The German-born pair immigrated to the United States in 1931 and launched an impressive 40-year career as photographers. Arriving in the midst of the Great Depression, they worked as migrant laborers. They would have been described as fruit tramps at the time, and turned their lenses to the plight of destitute workers, mothers, and children. And they spent several months in San Francisco capturing images of labor protests and the dock strike. For Meath in particular, the attention to her photographs attracted the attention of the editors of Life magazine. Impressed with her sensitive, human-centered approach, they brought her on staff as a photographer in 1936, only the second woman on staff after Margaret Bourke-White. And after a number of years traversing the country for both Life and Fortune magazines, the couple grew tired of the demanding, kind of fast-paced lifestyle and moved from New York to Sonoma County, purchasing a ranch up along Porter Creek Road in the hills in 1941. But they were initially drawn to the area through the work of Jack London, the famous author who both critiqued capitalism and spun tales of survival in the face of physical and economic hardships, both things that appealed greatly to the photographers. So one of the reasons that they ended up here in Sonoma County. And only a year after relocating to Sonoma County, the couple paid a visit to Jack London's widow, Charmian. They photographed her in her study, on the ranch, and among the ruins of the Wolf House, the original home that the Londons had constructed on the property, which had burned before being completed. We actually recently had a program with the local author Iris Jamal Dunkel, who was the 2017-2018 Poet Laureate of Sonoma County. And she had recently published the first full-length biography on Charmian London, called Charmian Kittredge London, Trailblazer, Author, Adventurer. And during that program, Iris reminded us that it was this photograph, the one you see on the left, that she saw at the museum in 2015 that helped inspire her to write the book, because she had not spent a lot of time thinking about Jack London's wife and what role she might have played in his career. And of course, there's a big story to go along with that. And so this was really something that inspired her to write that book. And then on the right, you see Hansel Meath's photograph entitled The Misogynist from 1939. And this became Hansel Meath's most famous photograph that she ever took. I'm not sure she loved it the best out of all of her photographs, because she once described it as the monkey on my back. It's a photograph of a rhesus monkey from a scientific lab that had escaped into the surf near an uninhabited island near Puerto Rico. Hansel Meath eventually left the museum a collection of her photographic prints and those of her husband. Otto Hegel passed away in 1973, and Meath died in Santa Rosa in 1988. And the collection that the museum holds consists of over 80 prints. And as you can see here, includes a great diversity of images consisting of unique views of local history and local interest, as well as connecting us to something much broader through images of the Great Depression, the dock strikes, San Francisco, and images from across the country through their work. So those are examples of the earlier elements from 35 in the current exhibition and how they relate to our overall collection. And I'd like to turn it back over to Jeff to continue our journey through the exhibition.
Thank you, Eric. So we're continuing now into contemporary art, and the bulk of our art collection that we're looking at in this particular exhibition really is contemporary. Although those of you who saw our the very recent exhibition, Landscape Awe to Activism, will know that we also have a very rich collection of 19th century California landscapes and other artworks. In fact, the Elizabeth Hohen that Eric just talked about a few minutes ago was part of that exhibition as well. And we're trying to draw some connections through the various projects we've had. So some of the artworks that you're going to see in the 35 artists show that we're presenting now have been seen in other exhibitions. However, some of the work is brand new and has never been seen, at least by, from my knowledge, by our public. So that is actually the case in these two works by Cristo and Jean-Claude. These are both drawings from Cristo. The drawing on the left is Over the River Project, Arkansas River. The right, two views of the Umbrella Project in Southern California and in Japan. And they just recently came to us through an estate, the Golden Kidder Estate. Some of you may be familiar with the fact that we have a very large Cristo and Jean-Claude collection that was donated by Tom Golden in 2001. Tom Golden was a friend of Cristo. They met during the hearings and the process to get the running fence approved in Sonoma and Marin counties back in the 1970s. And in fact, the running fence will celebrate its 45th anniversary next year in September. Tom Golden became so closely aligned with Cristo that he became a project manager on the Umbrella Project and some other projects that were very important in this country and worldwide. And so in 2001, we acquired over 100 artworks by Cristo through Tom Golden. And now Tom Golden died in 2002. His partner, Jim Kidder, just passed away earlier this year, sadly. But we have now acquired some additional Cristo works. And I will also mention, this is very interesting, the Cristo collection has been on national tour off and on over the years and just shipped out a couple of days ago to Florida and will be presented at the Vero Beach Museum in Florida right after the first of the year. Now it's Florida. We don't know if it's going to open to the public or not. With the pandemic, things in California are different than there, but that's a whole other story. But anyway, we're proud of this Cristo collection that we have, and certainly in the future, when it comes back to us, we will be sharing additional Cristo works with you. Meanwhile, let's move to the next image. And this is one of my favorite objects. In fact, during the recent Ungala and the opportunity to adopt an object, I put some money down on this particular one. This is a caftan that was sewn by Mary Bell Blackstone from fabric from the running fence. And it's just a really fabulous piece, very unique. And then let's move on to our next artwork. This is a recent acquisition courtesy of the artist Donna Brookman. And I think Donna has joined us tonight. I'm not sure if she's on or not, but if you are, Donna, thank you so much. Donna was included in the 2018 exhibition Time and Place. about human impact in the environment. And this work is from the Palace of Memory series, series of prints that are related to a series of paintings by of the same title. And the paintings were 9-foot tall, dramatic, amazing pieces that were just so incredible to see in our space. And when we were given the opportunity to acquire a print from that series, I was very excited because another print from this very same series was purchased by the Berkeley Art Museum around the same time, and it was exhibited in the exhibition Way Bay 2, which a number of us on the museum staff actually went to see. And so we now own this wonderful print. It's an archival digital print by Donna Brookman, and you can see it when you come to the museum to see this show in person, whenever that is. Anyway, it really relates to Donna's experience in India and her shock and dismay after a second visit many years after her first, seeing the change in the standard of living for the people, the sort of the impact on the environment, both urban and beyond, that India had just changed over a period of many years. And we're just seeing that in so many places around the world. So we see this work as a symbol of that relationship that we have to the environment and how important it is for us to really pay attention to the planet and to be kind to it. Let's move on. And oh my goodness, do I like this piece. This is Pat Len's Nobody's Poodle. Pat Lenz is a Healdsburg artist. She created this work in 2010, 2011, and it was exhibited in our museum in 2013. And then just not too long ago, through Women's History Month earlier this year, in our window gallery. It's a large-scale pink fiberglass dog with a grenade-shaped tail. It's a witty blend of contradictory imagery. Lenz describes Nobody's Poodle as an idol who embraces her femininity while exuding power and control. The poodle is a force for peace and nonviolence, whose benign weapon is perfume emitted from a grenade-shaped atomizer. Anyway, this is one of the things that I think is really important to our collection. We're starting to really look at works that have a social or environmental or other topical message or meaning. We're interested in materials, we're interested in a diversity of forms of expression, but we're also very interested in a diversity of opinions and issues that artists might address. Moving right along, this is another work that I really love a lot. It's a work on paper by the artist Gloria T Pomo. Now, Eric earlier talked about Hansel Meath and Otto Hegel and their photography, the documentation of various activities and people and things, places, things going on in the world, but also right here in Sonoma County where they were based. And Gloria T Pomo was Gloria Tribot. And they described her as a troubled young girl from one of the Pomo rancherias near Grayton. Well, she became an outstanding artist, and the museum owns quite a number of her pieces, and we're very proud to feature this one here in this particular show. And then moving along to something completely different is this wonderful work, Tribot by Monty. This sculpture was acquired in 2009. It's a vintage stainless steel and metal retro robot made from recycled steel, and other metals, basically discards. The figure stands on a stainless steel base. It has metal lampshades that form a skirt, 3 brass ball bearings as buttons on the torso. The vintage brass horn is wired for sound, plus 3 strings. It has 3 strings and a bow, and I have not played it yet, but it is playable. And so I'm kind of hoping when I get a little bit of time to figure out, maybe contact the artist and find out how you really play this thing. Some of you tuned in tonight maybe know that I am a musician, so I'm going to figure this one out. I'm going to play this particular piece of art as soon as I can. Monty was also commissioned to do some artwork up at Paradise Ridge. So once we get through COVID, at least if things open up so that you can go back to Paradise Ridge, hopefully you'll get to see his work there as well. Okay, let's move on. And many of you saw the solo exhibition by Maria de Los Angeles last year. This is the painting Our Lady of Charity. It's a 2019 acrylic on canvas, 32 inches by 48 inches. The painting was a purchase, courtesy, a gift from Eric and Debbie Green. And a lot of our artworks come to us because of a particular collector or because of the generosity of an artist. So we are just really, really grateful for that kind of support. Maria was born in Mexico, but came to Santa Rosa as a very young girl. She was raised in Santa Rosa, went to Santa Rosa Junior College, then on to Pratt in New York to get her BFA, got an MFA at Yale, now teaches at Pratt. She lives and works in Jersey City and is really a New York area-based artist. In addition to her exhibition at our museum, she has had numerous other museum and gallery exhibitions nationally. And we're just so proud of Maria and what she's accomplishing in her very young, but just brilliant career. And then moving right along, a wonderful artist based right here in Sonoma County also, Richard Shaw. This is a 3-dimensional trompe-l'oeil sculpture. Trompe-l'oeil being the French for fools the eye. It looks like what it looks like, made of all of these different materials, but it's actually all of porcelain. This porcelain house is built out of black and white dominoes, the blue book on the roof. It rests on a brown briefcase, 2 styrofoam cups, the eraser on the top of the book, all porcelain, every single part of this. And Richard was in a solo show with our museum several years ago in 2018. Was in a 3-person exhibition with Robert Hudson and Jack Steppen, one of our favorite artists. We own a few pieces of his, and this just seemed like a really phenomenal piece to share with you. Then moving right along to our next artist, Mario Uribe. I imagine most of you know Mario, who is local Santa Rosa artist. He built this maquette. It's a model for the major sculpture Peachtree, which has a permanent place in our sculpture garden. The sculpture comes from a project in 2013 supported by a National Endowment for the Arts grant. Mario worked with students from a local high school. He had the students working in collaboration with a group of students from the sister city, Jeju, Korea, the Santa Rosa sister city. And so the students were really looking at some of the threats to society here in Santa Rosa, talking about gang activity and other things that are threats to their well-being, their families, and the city. And the collaborative work it's a peace symbol with all kinds of words around it, which really help to bring our attention to the need to work together in peace and harmony to bring about a better society. And then we're going to, I think this is the last one we're going to look at in terms of what we're just focusing on. Crazy artist, Robert Williams. He's an American painter, cartoonist, was a founder of Juxtapose Art and Culture magazine, was one of a group of artists who produced Zap Comics, if some of you remember Zap Comics, along with other underground cartoonists such as Robert Crumb, S. Clay Wilson, and Gilbert Shelton. In 2015, he had a major solo exhibition with our museum, and this piece is called Errant Levity, also known as the Jockey. It was made in 2014. It's an amazing work constructed of fiberglass, steel, and automotive paint. And the connection to automotive culture and design has connected him to many things in the car culture, car world. And his sculpture that we own other sculpture as well as this one, which we are not featuring this time, but called The Wheel. Anyway, lent the sculpture to the Peterson Automotive Museum in Los Angeles not long ago for a big exhibition they were doing. And so that's something I also wanted to just kind of jump off of what I was telling you earlier about our Cristo exhibition that's been on national tour and is currently traveling again to Florida. We also have other artworks that we lend to other museums. We are in the Smithsonian Affiliate Network, and we also go beyond the Smithsonian museums and work with other museums. We borrow works, we lend works. We all try to work together to share art and things that are important with the community, wherever we may be. And with that, that pretty much wraps up the preview of the 35 exhibition. I'm going to turn this back over to Eric, but before we do, I just want to remind everybody that it is the end of the year. I know most of you tuned in tonight are members, and we thank you for your support. Thank you so much. We are also asking for year-end contributions, and it's very, very easy to give because we have signed on with Mobile Cause, which gives you many different options on how you can contribute. And Jenny, I hope that you, yes, Jenny has placed in the chat how you can support museum programs. It's as simple as texting your donation if you choose to do so that way. So we thank you for your support. And with that, back to you, Eric.
Well, thank you, Jeff. I don't know, do we want to take any questions or see if...
Oh yeah, we forgot the Q&A. You're right. I forgot to write it on my script, Q&A. We should have said this at the beginning. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. And yeah, nobody has done that because we didn't say that before. So let's do it this way. If you have any questions about the 35 Artists exhibition, please put them in the chat. And we're going to move right into the Artistry in Wood presentation. And then when that's over, we'll be looking at questions from both exhibitions, and we'll do our best to try to address them. Yeah, so thank you, Eric.
Sure, very good. That sounds good, like a good plan.
Everybody can tell we really rehearsed this, right?
Yeah, as Jeff mentioned, now it's time we'll move on to the second portion of the program tonight, which is to highlight the exhibition Artistry in Wood. And I have to say, while it's not entirely unrelated in certain way to the exhibition of 35 artists, which also looked back at a retrospective of work that goes all the way back to the beginnings of the museum itself. And a similar thing could be said of Artistry in Wood, which is an annual exhibition that we've featured for many years, going back virtually to the beginning of the museum. And to tell us about this year's exhibition, it is really my pleasure to bring in Don Jareb, who's the chairman of the Sonoma County Woodworkers Association, which has been the museum's partner in putting on this exhibition for all these years. So it's my pleasure to introduce Don Jareb, the coordinator of the exhibition and a master woodworker himself. So Don, it's all yours.
Well, thanks, Eric. I really appreciate the kind words. And it's my privilege to introduce what I feel is a wonderful Artistry in Wood light exhibition in what is just a wonderful building. I've been waiting to exhibit some of our work within the art museum building, and this is, at least for me, this is a dream come true. As most of you know, the Artistry in Wood has been, and Jeff said it right, it's been going on, this would have been our 32nd consecutive year at the museum to having it hosted for the Artistry in Wood. This is a very unique type of wood furniture, woodworking exhibition that is, I don't think it's really been seen anything like this anywhere else in the United States, where a museum has continually shown wonderful work by local woodworking artists. So it brings me great pleasure to lead you through a sort of a selection of contributions this year. We have 16 artists have contributed works. Some of these works are new, some of them have been in previous shows, and I will essentially give you a tour of what I feel are 4 or 5 really interesting pieces, at least in my opinion. And then I'll give the show over to John Cobb, who is a expert wood turner, whose wood turning masterpiece vessels you will recognize, and he will lead us through several of the turned vessels. So let's start off the pictures. And what I want to do is describe to you a set of pieces right there in the center. This is a chair and an end table by Lucinda Daly. She is a Berkeley-based woodworker artist who designed this chair and submitted it in a show about 2 years ago. It is titled Black Beauty, and it is made out of essentially ebonized or black dyed ash. And it is curvaceous. It is actually very comfortable. It is sleek, and it is just a gorgeous piece of work. And I have to say, I've sat in it. It is very comfortable. I just can't emphasize that more. And right next to it is a end table that she just finished this year. And it too is in ebonized ash. Unfortunately, we can't see the top of it, which she painted with a very attractive motif. So the pair of them together are just gorgeous pieces that would look great in any museum or anybody's home. So moving on to the next piece. These are actually two bicycles. These are bicycles made totally of wood by John Lacalade. He is a Sebastopol woodworker who makes replicas. Now on the left is a 1870s replica of a velocipede. This bicycle back then was actually made out of oak, which this bicycle, this velocipede, is made out of. It's made out of locally sourced oak. It has a, back then it was nicknamed a bone shaker because its suspension was very tough. It could not, you felt every little pebble in the pathway that it was ridden on. So this was about in the 1870s. Then on the right is a much more recognizable replica of a penny farthing. That is a bicycle that was in the 1880s, 1890s. This is also out of locally sourced ebonized oak, and it is true to size. I don't know if any of you have ever tried to ride one of these, but my impression is they are very difficult to master, and but they are of interest. This was the start of actually organized bicycle racing. So those are very, very nice, and I really feel that the up close they're just gorgeous. So the next piece is, some of you might recognize this. This is an exquisite corner cabinet by Joe Scannell. Joe made this back also about 2 years ago. It's titled Canvas Back Love. This is just wonderful veneer. Veneer has its origins, at least its modern origins, back in the 16th and 17th century. It was very high-end furniture back then was made artistically out of veneers, very different designs, very patterns, etc. Notice on this that there are two ducks, a male and female canvas back. They're shaded in the proper colors. The eye is very distinct. And then the willows on the right are different shades of green, which up close is, again, I keep using the superlative describer as exquisite, and they truly are. And then one final thing to notice, again, this is a corner cabinet. It's triangular in form, but each side is curved. So a very complex construction, and very beautiful in itself. The final thing is, oh, back, John. The final thing I wanted to point out is the knob on the drawer up on top is it's actually a blue canvas back egg that is made out of wood, of course. But so he carried the theme throughout the piece. So again, now next piece. Ah, yes, this is a wonderful, wonderful end table by Carol Salvin. It's made out of maple, mahogany, acrylic, and glass. And its title is What Lies Beneath. Just notice the playful legs out front versus the staid straight legs in back. The side and front are made out of mahogany. The front is actually a a door that opens down to a storage area on the inside. Again, a very playful piece. It's a sculpture and piece and work of art in its own respect. So, alrighty, next piece. Now, the final piece I want to describe is a coffee table made by Jeffrey Dale. He's from Pengrove. He, about 10 or 15 years ago, he found this piece of a claro walnut offcut from a log. Now, by offcut, I mean a piece of wood that's about a half an inch, 3/4 of an inch thick that is discarded. You can see the saw marks in the top there. And he found this in a offcut pile and put it in his stack of potential projects. And he came back a couple years later after it had dried, and you can notice the warpage, normal warpage from drying. And he actually utilized both the saw marks and then sanded down parts of it and applied a deep red acrylic paint. And then, of course, made a very exquisite trestle base to it. Up close, this piece is just, in my mind, again, exquisite. And I would love to have it in my living room if he would sell it. So that said, I'm going to hand the program over to John Cobb. John is a wonderful wood turner, and he is going to describe the turned vessels that are in the program. So you're on, John.
Great. Thank you, Don. Hopefully everybody can hear me, and I appreciate you all being online tonight for this event. We have a limited number of pieces in the show this year. Normally, wood turners are quite happy to stay in their shops and work. But this year, given our age demographic, most of our master woodworkers are locking the door and not letting anybody in or venturing out. So the number of pieces in the show is limited this year, but we do have some fantastic pieces that are certainly worth a view once we're able to all get out. I would like to highlight 3 pieces. They span an array of technique, of wood, and surface treatment that I think identify really quality works. The first is the bowl on the center left that you see in front of you. And it's a really beautiful small bowl turned by Brian Cullen. It's made from bay laurel, which is a commonly found wood around us. And if you venture across the border up north to Oregon, they'll call it myrtle wood, and they use it extensively. It's not a wood that lends itself to commercial use, and so you won't see a lot of furniture and whatnot made out of myrtle, but for turning and for smaller project, the wood is really wonderful to use. Bay laurel, we all know the bay leaf, there's a lot of oil in the leaves, and that oil also comes into the wood itself. And so when you're working with it, your tools are almost automatically oiled, and they stay sharp, and the wood cuts beautifully. And when it dries, it's just as hard as maple or elm. So I wanted to point out this bowl, and it's kind of hard to see it from the picture, but I see it as a cadence of 3s, and let me explain. The first is the visual part of this. There are 3 important visual aspects of this bowl that I really like. First of all, it's an oval. And the way that is achieved on a lathe is that you turn this bowl when it is green, when it is freshly cut wood, and it's still wet. And you turn it thin, and then the wood is allowed to dry. And as it dries, it warps. And it will warp depending on the rings and how it's located within the individual tree rings of the log. When it is done well, it dries, and you have a beautiful oval that is symmetrical, and that it is high on the ends and a little bit lower on the sides, but it is a nice wave. And so this bowl does that very well, and it is nicely balanced. It's pleasing when you come up to it, it's not jarring. And so to that extent, the form of this is very nice. Next in this is visual cadence. I point out that on the outside, it is textured. And what he's done is he's done a dappling texture around it and then coated it with a black milk paint. And so this draws your eye away from seeing the grain of the wood, but now you're looking at the texturing and then the form and shape of the bowl on the outside. If you haven't shaped it well, it'll be very evident when you look at it, because the black really makes the edge of it defined. And he has done a very good job on shaping this bowl so it sits nicely on the table, and the curves emanate from the foot all the way up to the top. And then the third component of that is that you look on the inside, and he has left the wood and the grain exposed, and it is sanded nicely. And so you get the knowledge that, okay, there is beautiful wood inside this. And so it's a complex bowl with the shape, the rim, and then the inside versus the outside. But I think it really comes together well. The next, as I mentioned, the cadence of 3, if you were able to drop down a little bit, you'll see that there are 3 carved feet on the bottom, rather than having just a foot where it sits on the table, or whether it's on the pedestal type base. He has actually carved 3 feet that emanate from the side of the bowl, and it sits perfectly on the table. This is something that he has pointed out has been done for thousands of years to keep something very stable. But when it is carved well, it just looks like the feet perfectly just come out of the wood, and not like they are stuck on there or glued on there. And he has executed those feet very well. So I see that unit of 3 in this piece, and I think he has executed it very well. So it's certainly worth a look. The next slide, piece I'm going to talk about, is a series of spheres by Steve Forrest. And what I want to note here is that turning a sphere accurately on a lathe is really difficult. The level of experience and skill to do this well is really, really high. You need to have extensive practice. You'll do it over and over again. And the way it is done is you start out with a block, and then you turn it close to being round. And then you cut off 2 ends, and then you put it between centers, and it will spin, and you make your curve. You pull it off a little bit, and then you rotate it and turn it again, round, round, round. And you keep doing that until the sphere comes into its shape where it is not evident there are any more bumps as you turn it and spin it. But it does indeed take a lot of practice. But what I love about these, when you get to them, you want to pick them up. It's almost like a tactile piece, and if you pick them up, they feel really good in your hand, and they feel perfectly round. And that's the key point of a well-executed sphere. The other thing that he's done here is he's using really beautiful woods, and some of them local, some of them that are not local, but there's maple, box elder, I believe one is madrone, and I'm having a mental moment on the others, but this is technically a very well executed piece, and just Buckeye Burrow. Thank you. So well done. So now I'd like to move on as we keep moving, and we don't want to put anybody to sleep here. These are the Silica Siblings, and I have to say this was my entry. I have focused on making hollow forms for almost a decade now. It's an advanced technique that really, I view this as a way to interact with beautiful woods, and you hopefully can create a piece of art from it. And I say interact because I can do one part of it. I make the shape, but it is the wood that determines what the look is going to be. And so that's this playfulness or interaction you have with this natural wood is really what I enjoy about this process. And the process starts literally when you walk up to a log or a stump you see, and you just start visualizing where is the piece within that. And so you can, if you take me to a wood pile, you know, I'm seeing everything, and it's kind of nuts. My wife says it's kind of like taking a Labrador to a tennis ball factory. I mean, I'm just bouncing all over, looking at all the things that could be in there. But it is, I really enjoy that. So what is this piece? This started with access to a carob log. For those of you that know carob, it was the chocolate alternative, I believe, in the 80s. They didn't go so well. They made some cookies out of it, and carob chip cookies that were great in the natural food industry for a little while, but kids hated them. So you don't see it very much anymore, but the wood is beautiful. The center of the wood is this beautiful red kind of wavy grain with a little bit of black in there. And then there's this broad white trim on the outside of sapwood. And so the relationship between the heartwood and the sapwood gives you options of how you want to position your piece within the tree. And you could put it in the center and just make it all red. And what I chose in this series is to make them partially white and partially red. And so that way, when you create a series, you can see that they belong together. And what I like about, you can have an individual piece and they should stand alone in terms of form and in terms of execution. But then when you put them together, you start seeing that there are relationships between the pieces. And you might see that of this group of siblings, there are 3 that talk to each other very well, and there are 2 sets of twins, and then there's some black sheep in there that seem like they're doing their own thing. So I enjoy having put the groups together. I think it elevates, or it adds to, rather than just looking at one central one, having this group together just changes the dynamic of what you're looking at. So that is it for me. I will turn it back to John or Don.
Hey, John, wonderful presentation. I just love it. And you're so knowledgeable on your turning. So that concludes at least our brief tour of the artistry in wood this year. I was very impressed by the response of club members as far as their submissions, especially the interest given the pandemic, given the limitations of the pandemic. We look forward to Artistry in Wood 2021. I think there's going to be a pent-up amount of creativity which will be exhibited, and we sincerely look forward to the collaboration with the Museum of Sonoma County. So with that said, I think I'm going to turn it back to John or Eric or Jeff.
John and Don, thank you both so much. What a wonderful tour of a fantastic exhibition. So we have time now for a few questions. I do see in the Q&A section, well, I recognize the person who asked this. My lovely wife, Connie, asks, Will you be curating other shows from the collection? Well, glad you asked. We do have some collection-based exhibitions coming up, primarily on the history side. And so, Eric, I'm going to turn this over to you to talk about what we have coming up in the really in the next few months and year.
Well, yeah, well, we have some big plans. That will definitely take advantage of our permanent collection. We are working on what will be basically a permanent county history exhibition that will go in hopefully late next year. Although, you know, lots of details to work out there. But we're also in the shorter term doing an exploration of our collection that will focus on actually larger scale pieces from the history collection, things that we don't often show. And I think we'll sort of play with the theme of size in terms of what it means to preserve things that are large and kind of the unusual sorts of stories that you can tell from objects for that. So those are a couple things that we are planning to derive out of our permanent collection. And the collection, you know, it's one of those things too that always offers inspiration, right? There are things in there that lead to bigger ideas about exhibitions, and that we might incorporate you know, elements of the permanent collection into broader exhibitions or things like that. So it's a constant source of both inspiration and source material for exhibitions, for sure. So
thank you, Eric. Also, a few things in the current 35 artists exhibition will be featured on the history side, and these are artworks and photographs. We talked about Hansel Meath and Otto Hegel tonight, but also in this exhibition are works by Florence Dixon and Marguerite Wildenhain. And we will be featuring some works in the history galleries by these artists coming up. And I don't know, you know, there's so much material. There's so many artworks and historical objects that in coming years we'll be looking to share more of that collection with you, with the public. Anyway, just stay tuned because there's plenty more where that came from. Let's see, we do have a question for the woodworkers. I think this might be for Don. Will there be any voting for best in show for this woodworking exhibit?
Hi, this is Don again. No, we don't have any plans of doing any best in show. We feel that all the exhibitors this year are best in show for just showing up. So that's
Okay.
That's number one. Let's see now. There's another question by Kalia Kleiban. She missed the first few minutes, and could we say again how one can see the full artistry and wood exhibit? Kalia, we'll be videoing the whole exhibit and presenting it at our association meeting next Tuesday night. At least that's my plan, and I hope that comes to fruition. So stay tuned.
there'll also be a virtual version of the exhibition through the museum too, so that you can kind of interact with and tour through. So that's coming too.
Right. In fact, we'll have virtual tours of the exhibitions, both 35 and Artistry and Wood, I believe available December 22nd.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's when our target date is to get them up online so you can see them on our website. Let's see, there's a question, is there a timeline available for the acquisition of all the works in the 35 exhibit? Yes, actually, one of the things we plan to do when we get the exhibition fully out on our website in a virtual format by December 22nd. We'll be giving you information about who the artists are, when the works were acquired, if there is a particular history or story that's of interest. And so we're working on that over the next couple of weeks. And so please make sure that you are subscribed to our e-newsletter, and that you'll see the announcement come out in our Tuesday e-newsletter, as well as on social media when that is, those exhibitions are live to the public and when you can see more information about everything. Okay, let's see. Oh, and video tour available after Tuesday for those of, okay, so Don, I guess you have a question about whether your tour that you're hoping to share with the Woodworkers Association will be available.
I'll make it happen.
Okay, great. And let's see. There is actually in the chat, Jenny has done us a big favor and posted the virtual exhibitions link. That's museumssc.org/engage. So if you go to our website and click on the engage link, you'll get a whole list of past and current exhibitions that have virtual tours and other available programs, plus just a whole range of other things that we offer, including art instruction, oral histories, various videos. There's just a wealth of content. And again, I want to thank our staff who have been just incredibly amazing in their creativity, intelligence, and resilience in pivoting, there's that term a lot of us are using, from in-person exhibitions and events and programs to an online format. And I want to thank our presenters tonight, Don Jareb, John Cobb, Eric Stanley, our Associate Director, and our crew that helped make tonight's presentation go as smoothly as it possibly could, John Del Buono and Jenny Bath. And many thanks to all of you who tuned in tonight, who are members of the museum, who support our important work. Thank you so much for your support. If you feel so inclined, in the chat, you can find the link for how to donate. You can text program to 91999, and that will get you into the Mobile Cause app on your phone, or you can go to museumssc.org/donate, and then you can donate right online. It's secure, easy, couple of clicks, you're done. And anyway, I think that's our program for tonight. So a little different than we normally would have a members preview or opening reception. I'm so sorry that we couldn't all be together in person, but hopefully soon, in the next several weeks, couple of months, whenever it might be, we'll see you back at the museum. And meanwhile, happy holidays. Stay safe, stay healthy, and with that, thank you and good night.